For 3 years, Hannah Miller thought she had the kind of marriage most people dreamed about. Friends often noticed how Jonathan looked at her, or how he always reached for her hand in crowded places. They lived in a small house on the edge of Duluth, Minnesota, with a yard that gently sloped toward the woods. Their evenings were quiet and full of comforting routines. Every day Jonathan came home from work, dropped his keys into the same ceramic bowl by the door, kissed her on the forehead and asked what was for dinner. He laughed a lot, worked hard and always said weekends were just for them. So when Jonathan mentioned a weekend fishing trip with his closest friends, Brian Collins, Scott Edwards and Kevin Brooks, Hannah didn't think twice. These were his college friends, the same ones he went hunting and camping with up north. Fishing trips were a tradition for them. The night before he left, Jonathan was full of energy, like a boy heading off for one more summer trip. "We'll be up near Lake Superior," he told her, tossing a sleeping bag into the back of his truck. "The old log cabin in the pines. Just us, the fire and the lake. Don't worry if I don't have service. Half the time those woods are a dead zone." Hannah kissed him goodbye at the door. "Have fun," she said. "Catch something worth bragging about." He smiled, gave her a quick hug and drove away. She listened as the sound of his truck disappeared. The house felt quiet without him. The first day moved slowly. Hannah cleaned, reorganized a shelf and even started a podcast, but the silence felt heavy. She realized how much of her day was shaped by Jonathan's presence. The sound of his boots at the door, his off-key whistling while he shaved, falling asleep with his arms wrapped around her. That night she ate leftovers alone and missed hearing his voice. As she stood in the kitchen sipping tea, a thought came to her, soft but clear. Tomorrow was Jonathan's birthday. They had planned a small celebration when he got back. But why wait? Why not surprise him? She pictured his face lighting up when she arrived at the cabin with all his favorite food. The more she imagined it, the better it sounded. The decision was made. The next morning, Hannah tied back her hair, put on an apron and opened the pantry. The kitchen filled with warm, familiar sounds and smells. She started with dessert, apple pie, the kind her mother had taught her to make. She sliced tart apples, tossed them with sugar and cinnamon, and laid them in a buttery crust. She rolled the dough carefully, folded the edges just right, brushed cream on top and placed it in the oven. While the pie baked, she made chicken wings seasoned with paprika, garlic and a little cayenne pepper. Jonathan liked them crispy with golden skin. She lined 2 trays and set the oven high. The kitchen filled with the rich smell of roasting chicken, mixing with the sweet scent of the baking pie. On the stove, a big pot of soup simmered. She chopped onions, carrots and celery, stirring them into the broth until steam fogged up the kitchen window. October mornings in Minnesota were cold, and she knew the men would want something hot after being out by the lake. She baked a tray of soft dinner rolls, brushing them with butter until they gleamed. Between oven timers, she cleaned up and hummed along with the radio, moving through the kitchen with care and purpose. She imagined Jonathan's friends gathered around, surprised and laughing when she arrived. She saw Jonathan smiling, his arms open wide, proud to say, "My wife drove all this way just to bring us dinner." By noon, the kitchen looked like a holiday feast. Pies and rolls cooled on racks. Soup was packed in jars. Trays of wings were covered with foil. Hannah brought out a large thermal tote and began to pack everything. She wrapped the pie in a clean towel, poured the soup into sturdy jars, stacked the rolls carefully and sealed the wings. She added napkins, plates, utensils and even a thermos of fresh coffee. The bag was heavy but it felt good, like it held not just food but love and thoughtfulness. When she zipped it shut, she stood back for a moment, feeling proud. Tomorrow was Jonathan's birthday and she was ready to make it special. The next morning was pale and cold. Mist hung above the rooftops. Hannah loaded the thermal tote into the backseat of her car, double-checked the containers to make sure nothing would spill and started the engine. Her breath fogged up the windshield as the heater warmed the air. She felt a flutter in her chest, a mix of nerves and excitement. The first part of the drive was easy. Paved roads passing through the quiet edges of Duluth, past closed diners and half-empty parking lots. Soon the pavement gave way to county roads lined with birch and pine trees. The leaves had turned bright shades of orange and red, painting the woods in color. The sky was clear and blue. The air smelled like pine and damp earth. She rolled her window down just a bit to breathe it in. She glanced at her phone, only 1 bar left. She remembered that the last stretch to the cabins didn't have any service. Jonathan had joked about it many times. You could disappear out there and no one would know until Monday. Hannah smiled at the thought. This time she was the one showing up unexpectedly. The road narrowed and twisted through the forest. The car bumped along slowly as branches swayed overhead and shadows moved across the windshield. Somewhere ahead the cabin waited. She imagined Jonathan and his friends still half asleep, not expecting her, not expecting warm food and fresh coffee. Her heart beat faster. She pictured the look on Jonathan's face. Surprise, then happiness, maybe even a little embarrassment, but the good kind, the kind that said she had done something special just for him. The thought made her cheeks feel warm. The car climbed a small hill and leveled out. A clearing opened up ahead, the usual parking spot near the cabins. Hannah slowed down, expecting to see familiar cars. Jonathan's old truck, Brian's dented SUV, Scott's beat-up Jeep and Kevin's rusty minivan. But she stopped suddenly. She didn't recognize the cars in front of her. A new pickup truck gleamed in the sunlight, clean and expensive, like it had just come from the dealership. Next to it was a bright red sports car low to the ground. Utterly impractical for back roads like these. A small city car sat at the end of the row, its paint shiny, its tires too clean to have come far on bumpy dirt roads. For a moment Hannah thought she had taken a wrong turn. She checked the landmarks without thinking. The curve of the trees, the old split-rail fence leaning at the edge of the lot, the worn path leading deeper into the woods. This was the place. The same clearing Jonathan had described. The same one she remembered from a summer years ago when she had joined them for a day. She turned off the car. Silence filled the space, heavy and complete. Then from far away, the forest carried a sound that didn't belong. A deep bass beat thudded through the trees, steady, loud, and pulsing. Not the soft sound of a guitar around a campfire. Not the low hum of men's voices. But loud, synthetic music. The kind made for nightclubs, not cabins. Hannah didn't move. Her hands still rested on the keys. The bag of food in the backseat now felt ridiculous, almost like a joke. It was heavy with care, but in this moment it seemed out of place. She listened harder. The music was clearer now. And then came the laughter, high-pitched, sharp, and unmistakably female. Not one voice but several. Laughter that spilled over itself, bright and playful. The kind of laughter that didn't belong in the picture she had carried with her all morning. Her heartbeat sped up. Something was wrong. The trees still looked the same, the road was still familiar, but everything felt different now. Oof. She tightened her grip on the wheel. Then slowly let go. Carefully she reached for the door handle, ears still focused on the sounds coming from the woods ahead. What she had imagined, a sweet birthday surprise wrapped in love and comfort, was fading, replaced by a heavy feeling she couldn't explain. Hannah stepped out of the car. The cold air wrapped around her like a damp blanket. She left the tote on the back seat. Its weight was too much now. She closed the door gently, trying not to make a sound. The music was louder. It vibrated through the trees. She could hear more laughter now and the sharp pop of bottle caps being opened. Each step she took seemed too loud. The gravel under her shoes crunched like breaking glass. Still, she followed the narrow path that led from the parking area to the cabin. She knew it by heart. Branches brushed against her jacket as she walked. With every step, her heart beat harder. She told herself there might be a good reason for all this. Maybe other people were camping nearby. Maybe she was jumping to conclusions. But then the trees opened up. The cabin came into view, and her breath caught in her throat. Light poured out from every window, bright and unnatural in the fading evening. Not the soft glow of lanterns or a wood stove. These were harsh electric lights, glaring and white, casting sharp shadows across the clearing. The music thumped from inside, the bass shaking the wooden walls. The cabin didn't look like a quiet fishing lodge anymore. It looked like something else entirely. Hannah moved closer, carefully, as if the ground might betray her if she made a sudden move. She reached one of the side windows. The curtain hung halfway open. She pressed her face to the cold glass. And everything shattered. The room inside, usually filled with old fishing gear and smelling like pine smoke, was now a mess of noise and motion. The table was covered in bottles. Whiskey, vodka, champagne, some half empty.